Thank you, Glacio. My question to anybody who would like to answer it would be, and I've heard it many times before, or not that many times, but a question that I'm sure is on everybody's mind is, why do spiritists suffer so much? Thank you.
I think we qualify suffering according to our point of view. It's very much like a child when you say you have to go to school to receive an education. And to the child, this is an act that is going to cause pain and suffering. Of course, the child would prefer to be home playing video game and having ice cream instead of eating their vegetables. So I think in a way we still call suffering things that are actually going to work on our benefit, and but because of the lack of maturity on the part of our spirits, very much like the child, I'll see that as being an act of that is going to impose me pain and make me suffer.
I actually don't agree with you. I beg to disagree respectfully. I don't think. I think the question why spirituals suffer so much. I don't think we suffer that much. On the contrary, I think that spiritism helps us to not suffer so much. Now, we need to make a difference between suffering and pain, right? So I think there is growth requires some sort of pain. Actually, Chico Xavier says that if it's not to, if you don't intend to grow, it's better not even to be born. But even to be born physically, there is some pain. For the seed to germinate towards the light, there is effort. Growth calls for effort, and effort brings some pain. If you want to get stronger, you need to go to the gym. The only way you get strong if you become sore. If you want to become intelligent, you need to sacrifice your hours at the beach. You need to sacrifice your hours with your family. And you need to go to the pain of late nights, studying, and all that. So why is it that it's okay to think that for everything that is material, pain is okay? It's okay to deal with pain if you want to get stronger. A lot of people want to get prettier, and they go to the pains of surgery to enhance their physical bodies. But when it comes to getting morally better, we think that it can come without the pain, the natural pain that is required for any type of growth. So what Spiritism speaks about is about this necessary pain, but what Spiritism does is really gives us the tool to go through life with less suffering. Isn't that what Jesus proposed? Take my yoke, follow the laws, and you will not suffer. It won't take your trials away, but it will give you the tools so that you can go through life with less suffering.
I just would like to recommend everyone to look at the book Our Daily Bread, item 60. It's called The Logic of Providence. Emmanuel can actually reply to this question much better than we are. And so I do really recommend that you go there. Item 60 of the book Our Daily Bread.
Right? Just a second. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I want to say thank you for each one. But my special thank for today for Julio, because when I come here today, the first thing I'm asked, why in English? And I'm shining right now. Thank you very much. You really touched me. What do you say? Okay? Appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. God bless you guys. And again, Julio, thank you. Thank you very much.
I noticed your English have improved.
I wanted to sort of touch a little bit what you just said, and I wanted to give my gratitude for every person that's standing here, is here, and everyone else here, and here in Georgia, and everywhere here in the U.S., because if it were not for each one of you doing your work in English, I would not be here today. Thank you.
My questions, I think, goes to maybe Kirsten. I think that in terms of the English spread or how to disseminate the Spiritism through the American society, I think that we are probably the first generation of, or let's say, the explorers or bringing the message to this land. And I think that the challenge that probably each group of spiritists faces translating the message, first of all, to your inner circle, like family members. There's a challenge at your home to translate this. There's a challenge to your friends to comprehend the message. And I think that by the moment that I started getting in touch with this doctrine like a few years ago, one of the things that it really impressed me was the fact that we are not a proselytist doctrine. Like, the message here is live the life, the example that you want to be. So when you summarize this, and at the same time, like, we see the need, and I really like this concept of we are here to pay our debt. And the first time, like, how to give it back in the most effective way to this group of people, like, we're maybe in a group of Brazilians here that started disseminate a generation, maybe the sons that live here, they struggle to absorb the message, but you've been probably first born generation of spirits here. Can you share a little bit of your perspective? How was to grow up and spiritist in the US just for the sake of other families? Because imagine myself in the future. One thing that I brought in another lecture that we discussed here is the youth. They always struggle with the feeling of being connected with their peers, and especially through the youth age, like you feel disconnected because you don't have spiritist group. So I want to be a Catholic, I want to be a Protestant or whatever. I want to be part of groups that are similar to my thought. So I think that's a very sensitive topic because it's a challenge for us to translate the message. And maybe I really nice to see you like at this moment as an example of a person that probably went through all of this and now it's spreading in a very interesting way the message. So can you share the experience what to have been through all this time?
I can, and let me just premise my statement by saying that I am no expert in its dissemination. Say that. So my experience as an American born to Brazilian parents that are spiritists was that I felt like an outsider in my own home. First, because my parents were Brazilian, and we were actually talking about this recently. They didn't teach us Portuguese, so that was one. And I'm not saying that's neither good nor bad. It just was what it was, just from an objective standpoint. So as I grew up, I had the blessing of my mother translating a majority of the books that did not exist in English at that time to English for us in her extremely broken English, which she still has till today. And as I became a young adult and I looked around, there was nothing in English, and I felt disconnected from my spiritist community. When I came to the realization, probably when I was 17, 18, I was looking around and talking with my mom, how can I, I'm having my Catholic friends, my Baptist friends, they all have youth groups. And I said, there's nothing in my language that I can connect, because even though I was Latino by, the category that, here in America they put me in. I did not feel that I was in that category myself emotionally. I didn't identify, if you will, with that category. So I had issues with going to centers that were predominantly Brazilian because I couldn't connect with these teenagers that had a different culture that was not my own. So I can only connect at that time at the centers that were doing things solely in English because that's what they were, I felt a little bit more connected to them. So I looked at SGNY at the time, some places in New Jersey, and of course in Baltimore. Everything else was too far because I didn't have a car until I was like in my 20s. So anything that I could take a train to, get a bus to was easiest. So I connected, I think, mentally, emotionally to those places because I saw that there was a desire to do things in English. And of course, people were there. And even till today, I can tell you that, and I say this not to offend anyone, but perhaps it's a personal struggle, I think as individuals. Because culture, within every culture, even the American culture, and if you study sociology, you'll learn about culture, that even within every culture, there are subcultures. So the culture of Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up, is extremely different in comparison to the culture of Florida, and the culture of New Jersey, and the culture of New York. It's very different. So for me, the culture in New York and Maryland was slightly closer to the one in Pennsylvania versus New Jersey or Florida, which is predominantly, you're going to see a Latino community, which is completely okay. It's just the way that it is. We are the melting pot. But I felt very disconnected. And I don't blame anyone for that. I think it's a natural process that when you migrate from one place to another, even your most ardent desire to embrace a new culture, you're always going to have the remnants of the culture that you came from. And I see that because when I was at Sylvia's house, John and Sylvia, and I had to go out and buy all this new stuff that I needed because I left other stuff in my state. So it was like 11 o'clock at night, wasn't it, Sylvia? And so I said, look, no problem, I'll get an Uber. And for me, as an American, I like to be independent. Like I feel uncomfortable when someone's like, no, depend on me because I got you. Like that's an uncomfortable feeling for me. And so Sylvia, acknowledging the cultural difference, she said, I know Americans like the 100% independence, but it's okay. You're here in my home, allow me to do this for you. And I had to learn something in my life that it's a charity to allow other people to do good things for you. Like allowing someone to, express kindness to you is a charity as well. So for us as an American, I was thinking about this recently, there has to be for us a cultural understanding of Brazilians as well, because there is a difference, and we have to have this, cultural acceptance. I don't know about you guys, but in my profession, we are constantly having meetings about cultural competency and being able to know the culture and the different cultures of the patients that we treat. And it has to go both ways. Of course, patients don't always understand the healthcare culture. But for us, I think in the Spiritist Center, I would say the Americans also have to understand that there is another culture, that we're intermingling multi-cultures, and that, it's not that one culture is better than another, but we have to think about, I guess, in my mind, the greater purpose. So if you're asking what to do where I am, I think a wise man once said, flourish where you are. If in your state has a certain culture, learn about it, grow about it. I mean, Georgia has one of the largest, historically greatest civil rights history than all other states. How many of us in this room know about that culture, know about that, and what that means for Georgians? It's huge. As an American, I know that. It's huge here. So it's something for us to consider, because not just culture, but the psychosphere that surrounds this state is very different than from the state that I come from, when Suzana comes from, and so forth and so on. So again, I'm not an expert. I'm a very imperfect being, but I'm trying, as the gospel said, to do my best. And I believe in a collaborative effort, we can go very far. I hope that answers.
In reference to what you said about kids and teenagers at the Spiritist Center, sometimes we arrive at a Spiritist Center and proudly they mention about the mediumistic meetings that they have. They would say we have 2, 3 spiritist mediumistic meetings. And then we ask, how many classes do you have for the youth and the children? We know that Spiritism is based on spiritual phenomena. Yet, we have to be more concerned about the living than the dead. Aren't children more important than the spirits? Who are children? Recently reincarnated spirits. If they have no place to learn, if there is no spiritist center for them, they will grow to become irresponsible adults, eventually might commit a crime and die, and then as a spirit come to our spiritist meetings, in a mediumistic meeting. Doesn't make any sense. We want to be proactive to avoid the problem. So if we have 3 different mediumistic meetings and no meetings for the youth, there's something that people should reflect about the priorities of that spiritist center. I constantly hear that, the spiritist movement in the U.S. belongs to the children and the grandchildren of today's spiritists. But by looking at the data, looking at the evidence, that doesn't give me too much hope. Just today, I had someone saying here that their kids are no longer participating in the spiritist center. Now, before I even ask, why is it that the kids are not participating, I'm more about reflecting about how the spiritist center carries their activity. We have to be honest. When we don't want to, when we don't feel like being here, we force ourselves to be here, don't we? As an adult, out of obligation, we push ourselves to be here because we know better. Now, children, they're not pushing themselves. So if this is a boring place for adults, when are they going to come? Never. And here we are in a dark room praying for the dead, when the living are right there begging for our help. So we have to check our priorities.
I have the feeling that if we do our job well in this country, we will be reborn here. And of course, we would like to be spiritists. What are we doing in order to prepare our future for that? Because then we are going to be Native Americans speakers, and I don't know, something within myself gives me this certitude that the certainty of, we are going to come back. And every time I think about the struggles and the difficulties we go in terms of putting and trying to disseminate spiritism here, the difficulty of translating the books and all of the materials, I think, I'm planting for my future, because I do sincerely hope also that I may be blessed to be born in this country and to be able to reap the benefits that we are all doing, that we are all planting today. So let us not accommodate ourselves thinking it belongs to the future, because to the children are the future, because when we think like that, we think they have to do the work that it's in our responsibility today to do. I really have, I feel something really, really bad, weird when I see those signs. The future, the children are the future. I think, in my opinion, is us not wanting to do what we were called to do today.
What I want to say is, I'm a newbie in the Spiritism, and I do love it from the bottom of my heart. I was raised a Catholic, and then I moved to the United States years ago to New York, never, and then when I moved to Georgia, the Catholic church is far away from my house, so I raised my kid in the Methodist church, and I found the Spiritism through pain, not through love, but I always had the faith in God, and so what I want to say is, it's beautiful. I want to thank you, all of you. I learned so much being, coming to the house for 1.5 years now. Took the classes 1 year for the Spirit's book. It's wonderful. Learned so much through it, and helped my family, my daughter. And one thing that I want to say is I do the gospel at home. My daughter doesn't participate. She's 19 years old, and it was because something that happened to her that that I found this great, wonderful doctrine. And but she does drink the water, and she does want me to pray for her every time. So it's wonderful. So I'm very blessed that I found you, and I wish to go farther in this. And my question is, my kids were born here. I've been in the United States for many years now, and she's 19 and she's in college. So she was living at the dorm last year, first year in college, and I would go there and I would bring the gospel at home, and I would talk to her friends who are living with her, 4 friends, and the young people here, they are lost. They need, but they are looking for something. They do realize when I start talking about spreading, because I do spread the Spiritist word, and they do love to hear what I have to say, and they think it's wonderful, but there is no place for them to go, and I hope, they will grow up and one day find what I found, because I want everybody to find what I found, you know what I mean? This wonderful, and I'm not afraid of death anymore. That's one thing that's wonderful too. So my question is, I do believe that in the future for these millennials kids, that they will find a place and they will find what I found. But do you believe in that too? That in the future, these kids that are lost, or because of drugs and all this stuff, because of the generation, the tech and all this stuff, do you think they will find some place in the Spiritism doctrine? Yeah.
It's up to us. It's about to us.
It would be wonderful.
Yeah, it's all about us. What we can do, and I think all of us have been somehow part of the Spiritist movement in the U.S. One person here is a native speaker in English, so we all have to have the courage to not only learn this beautiful philosophy, but we had to access it, understand. Sometimes some of us write and translate the book so that they can be accessible to others as well. But I think it's up to us, and I think we have to have the courage to have an accent, to speak with an accent, have the courage to be among giants in the movement and still take the challenge and do it. It's the courage to keep at it, even when we don't have, in the case of many Spiritist Center, the human resources to do the work that we all want to get it done. But it starts with us. It's up to us.
The same question was asked to Dalai Lama the same day in Frankfurt. And now I feel that the obligation to say something very good about him. And he replied this the following way. It's not a matter of what we believe it or not. It's the reality. It's happening. It's going to happen.
One more question. I need the author name of the upside of your dark side, your book that you said. And I have a question. I'm sorry, I asked too much. But in the office, do you have to ask yourself, do you need it? Do you want it? Remember you want the office?
The office, yes.
Do you want it?
I still
Or
want
do you
it.
need it?
Yeah.
And if you don't need it, just don't resist it.
Yes,
Let
thank
go.
you. I will remember you forever.
And Kirsten, Alex Gray, is he in Belo Horizonte? Is he from Minas Gerais? The painter, remember you showed so many painters from Alex Gray? Because you said it was the one in Belo Horizonte who told you about him. Because I thought it was beautiful. And my daughter is very artsy, so it would be, some connection to the spiritism.
So Alex Gray, and let me clarify. So I came to know about Alex Gray because of Andre Moreira. He's but he has no relation to the artist himself. He just was showing a picture when he gave a lecture. And I believe Alex Gray is actually American, but has a website, and you can go and I believe purchase things as well. So, but you also can Google and, copy and paste and probably print your own if you really wanted to. That's not illegal. I'm not really sure. But sorry, if it is illegal, then don't do that. Go and purchase it as you should. But to speak to in regards to your daughter and the youth and the millennials, which I kind of came in, I was like the last little bit of the millennials, yeah. And I think Jussara said it right, that it is gonna happen. But as I always like to remind people, because I've seen a lot on social media bashing millennials, and of course in the beginning I took great offense to that, and I learned, well, this is very common occurrence with every new generation. Every generation. So the generation that'll come after the millennials will bash the millennials, and so forth and so on. And as we turn to our parents and go, "You're old," it happens routinely. So, and with every generation comes a new wave of spirits that are coming and that have come already, and that no longer the old of, "Hey, this is my religion, you have to follow it," doesn't really work. And thanks to Spiritism, if I were brought up Catholic, I never would have become a Catholic, because for me, the way that my mind works and a lot of my peers, it's like, just because you say it doesn't mean that I'm going to follow it. There has to be reason and purpose and passion behind it, and what's it all for. So the fitting into a box, I truly believe that's why the LGBT community has been brought to light, in part because of millennials, because we are saying, no, what you all said before no longer serves us, and we want to, there's no box. So I think that also ushers in a new wave of thinking. And I believe ultimately, truly in my heart, that Spiritism, as we know, is not the religion of the future, but the future of all religion.
I just want to say something back to you. When you were speaking, I felt very moved by what you said. I'm here today particularly tired after this week. And so these type of testimonials, they mean a lot to us who are trying to do the work. And I think the work is multidimensional, There's not one answer for how we're going to spread the Spiritism. It's an effort that have to happen at many different levels. So the Spirits Federation of Florida, the biggest commitment of time, commitment of effort, and financial commitment has been to educate the folks who are doing the work with the children and the youth. They need to have resources. They need to have tools. And so we have been investing very heavily in providing them with all the necessary tools so that the education of the children can be done appropriately. If you have unprepared educators in the Spiritist centers, we are doing a disservice to Spiritism. So this is how we have been tackling down this issue, which does not mean that we should be also working at all different levels. The result of today, for me, being here, listening to Julio, listening to you, reflecting on the work of the Federation, and this is going to continue tomorrow in a dialogue that we're going to have in terms of this work, is I'm going to go back home and propose that we start, the Federation of Florida has two departments, the Children and Youth Department and Department of Marketing, and we need to start a Department of English Dissemination, where we can really focus effort and minds and resources to keep promoting these events. It doesn't matter how small they are. We must multiply them across the country. And in this way, because it's meant to be. It's not what we want, it's what God wants. The resources will be there, and the youth will find, one way or another, a place for them to be.
We actually have started this month in collaboration with the Federation of Florida, the CYD, Children and Youth Department, and the United States Spiritist Federation. We have just released a magazine that is supposed to be a monthly magazine, is Spiritist Kids. And it's beautiful. The first issue, we have Angelina Jolie on the cover, has Maleficent. And although it is directed to the children and youth, I mean, it's so beautifully done. And I think many adults are going to benefit as well. It's the graphics, the stories, the way it is presented. But, this is an effort that we are doing, and we need the collaboration of all of you. We have just released it, and we had no one buying it except 2 groups in the whole United States. So I think it's time for us to stop talking about the needs and to collaborate ourselves, because if we don't do that, the cost to produce this magazine for us is kind of high, and we will have to stop it. And it breaks my heart to think about all the efforts that have been done. I mean, the group in Florida has been doing a great work in putting together the magazine, the Federation, editing, we paying graphic artists to do that, to put. So, I mean, we have to do something. It's as little as just buying one magazine. And I'm sure that if your daughter sees that, she's going to start looking at things differently, because it speaks their language, And so I invite you all to go to the website of the United States Spiritist Federation, that is spiritist.us. Go to books, and you will see there the Spiritist for Kids. And hopefully we will be releasing the number 2 already in October, and we will be able, with the help of each and every one of you and those that are at home hearing us, to continue doing that. Okay?
I'm going to say something controversial, so if it's going to offend somebody, I do apologize beforehand, but I'm willing to take it. So I often have conversations with my Brazilian friends as to why I do not teach my daughter Portuguese. But when I think about the youth, when I think about the children and the books that we're utilizing for our kids, and I know how important it is for someone that knows another language to teach their children that, for various reasons, to communicate with, family that's, back over there. But if we want our children to grow up here, obviously they are, and have contact in the context in this country, it would be advantageous for them and for us and for this movement to have material in English. I don't know if the kids today are going to know what I went through, because there was nothing in English for me growing up as a kid. There was nothing. I mean, I think there was the gospel, and I think SGNY at one point would translate the heaven and hell, but there was like nothing really in English. So now we have a plethora of stuff. I mean, we have Kardec Radio has a radio show for kids as well, and the magazine, and there's plenty of books that are out there. I mean, utilize these tools. They're so important that the kids have this, so when they grow up, they can take it off and always have it in the back of their mind. The one big thing that helped me, that I remember telling my mother one day when she was asking me, how I was able to not get involved with drugs and all these other kind of things and do other things, why I didn't go astray. And I said, Mom, every time I encountered issues in my life, I would remember the stories I learned at Sunday school at home. Like the little moral stories that she would teach us, which basically, in essence, she translated Fabi's postula or whatever it was for kids, for us, for her 4 kids. And I remember the stories throughout my life, even as an adult, reflecting back. So it's important that we're giving that inheritance to our children, because I always ask myself, for me, and for what I envision as my purpose for my child, what am I leaving to my daughter? It's not so important that I'm leaving her a language, but that I'm leaving her a deeper language of life, of learning how to deal with problems. Because independent of the language that I speak, if we can't deal with our problems and learn how to manage stress and relationships, you're going to fall into the abyss.
I know time is up, but I just want to make a very quick comment. I'm really, I think it's great that Angelina Jolie is on the cover of the first magazine. And by that, I mean, although I do think she's gorgeous, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that she's an American reference, right? So you can think about doing one with Michael Jackson, because when I taught my son about reincarnation, his first desire was that Michael Jackson would reincarnate sooner than later.
Okay. We had a wonderful Q&A. Thanks again to all for being here. It's, yes.
I just want to thank the entire team. To me, it's so important that we are here as a team, and I got to be invited to be one of the members. We have Daniel in the camera. We have John, Daniela in Lincoln transmitting. We have Glaucio assisting, and Trubowskis.
Burovsk.
There you go.
Mike.
Yes.
Mike has assisted us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Well, yeah, sure.
I can say that out loud. I know that you have your entire family that needs you right now, and you decided to come here for this cause, to share knowledge and help us. So I really want to say thank you so very much for everything that you all do. Really appreciate it. Okay.
I know time is up.
I do too.
You read my mind. There are some people who couldn't come because of work, because of their kid, no babysitter. And here we have this amazing individual. A hurricane just went through their town. The house has tree all over the place. No power throughout the entire week. She was preparing her lecture in the dark with a flashlight.
Oh, wow.
And you didn't get the office because next hurricane, a tree is going to get into that office, not the one you are.
Well, with that, we do have to conclude, and this is the second annual conference of the Spiritist Federation in the U.S., and once again, thanks again for being here. And Rita will carry us through the last moments with a prayer.